Welcome to DevTalk Live. Please welcome Dino, Esposito, and Skeet. And we talked for a while what will be the topic of our podcast, live podcast. And we agreed that you might be a little tired of all this technology talk, and you have another portion coming up tomorrow. So we decided to talk
all on trousers. Just 45 minutes about trousers.
Or shoes, or
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Okay.
My first question
shoes.
to you would be to maybe describe yourself using some technical words.
Oh, you mean like I feel like a robot or something?
What technical adjective fits your personality?
Oh, well. The adjective that comes to mind is describes an attribute I don't have. I'm not scalable. And this is, why not scalable? My son is 18 years old, so he's in the perfect age to criticize everybody, especially parents. And he said to me, Dad, I took a look at your business, the way you work, what you do, and you can do much more in terms of money, in terms of business. You can gain a lot more than you do, so I can spend a lot more than I do. That was the point. And he said, the way you do your activity is not, I was looking for, is not scalable. And then that made me thinking about that. And actually, I think I kind of agree, because everything I do, from writing articles, books, webinars, speaking, training, whatever I do is valuable because it's done by me. So I cannot hire, given the current organization of my business, I cannot hire anybody to help. Maybe I can have a secretary, I can have someone to book my flights, maybe pay my bills, but no kind of technical thing I do can reasonably be outsourced to anybody else, and that makes me not scalable at all.
Okay, how about you?
Okay, so not so much a technical term, but a term that is used within technological discussions. Overhyped, I would say. People seem to have the wrong idea about what I'm likely to know things about, or how likely I am to give the right answer about things, or crystal balls.
Hyped?
Hyped.
Okay.
Yeah. If you wanted a more actually technical thing, mutable. So I've certainly been changing the last couple of years, as some of you are probably bored of hearing about now. I've become a fairly ardent feminist, and that's been a real eye-opener, and I look at the world in a different way, and who knows how I'll look at the world in 2 years' time.
That's because you talk about immutability a lot in software, but you describe yourself
Absolutely,
as mutable.
Yes. Objects should be immutable. People should definitely be mutable.
Absolutely, I agree.
I cannot agree more, yeah. I would describe myself as asynchronous, because I often hear something and I return with the reply 2 days later. Okay, so...
that you call this asynchronous? I call this to be lazy or
lazy,
lame or
no,
something
I'm not.
else.
Surely that should have been, I think I'm asynchronous. I'll tell you why later on.
Okay, we are all developers here, and I have a question to you both. What a developer can do to improve himself as a developer besides writing code?
Do you want a serious answer first, or I can make a joke before being serious?
Make a joke and then...
Okay, no, because a moment ago, for just a millisecond, when he said, you both, I understood for a moment, you porn. So that could be something that makes your life easier when it comes to developing. It's one possibility. Okay, on the serious, yeah, okay. So what was the question?
How one can be a better developer? What activities, except for writing code, can make us better developers?
I think that there is essentially one way, generally speaking, that makes you a better developer, but also in general a better professional, whatever you do in your whatever is your work. So I think that is about improving the quality of what you can do by default. So in software especially, we hear as attendees of conferences, readers of articles, blogs, books, and whatever, and as a speaker, I gave many times a talk around solid principles, good practices of software design, those boring things, design patterns, these kind of things. And the point is, the value of those things, I mean, is not much attending a lecture, trying to apply those things, and being scared of every single line of code you write, whether or not it satisfies, fulfills a given design pattern that some expert told you about. It's about making those things part of yourself, your body, your software body, so that every time you start doing some things, those things are done having those principles incorporated, and you do some things right the first time. And and this is essentially a path that in life takes you to, to becoming over time better and better. And when you go beyond a certain time of your life, wiser and wiser, or older. No, not to say older, basically.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I'm going to turn around a bit because I'm very conscious that I can only see like a third of the people. So everything Dino said sounds good to me. I could give pat answers about reading blog posts and read code as well as writing code and things. But instead, let me just take a little poll. How many of you write APIs or libraries or something that other people consume? Okay, a few. How many of you write web applications? Okay, quite a few. How many of you write questions or answers on Stack Overflow? Quite a few. Right, these all have one thing in common. Can anyone tell me what it is? Well, it's writing something. Yeah, it's other people. So when you write an API, someone else is going to consume it. When you write a web page, someone else is going to use it. When you write a question or answer, someone else is going to read it. I think we would be best served as software engineers spending a bit more time trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the other people. I told you we would talk about shoes. Thinking about the person who is going to consume what we produce. And also, when we're consuming, think about the perspective of the person producing it. I've been thinking about this. This is in some ways rehearsing a talk that I'm giving in like 3 weeks' time, so please forgive me. I sort of want to get these arguments rehearsed, and then you can give me feedback afterwards and we can improve. I've been thinking a lot about the blog posts that I've seen saying Stack Overflow is awful, good questions get closed immediately, it's all terrible, those Stack Overflow mafia and things like that. And then I see other posts on Meta Stack Overflow saying, isn't the quality of Stack Overflow terrible now? So many rubbish questions and answers. And I've been trying to see how we can think about both of these perspectives without assuming bad actors. Like, assume that people are generally nice people. Some people will come to Stack Overflow and ask questions without having done any research. They will literally copy and paste their homework into the question box. Okay, I think that's lazy. That's a bad thing to do. I have no problem with just, let's delete those questions. Fine. There are some people who will downvote because they feel like it, because they've got power. They will cast close votes because they forgot their keys. Fine, they shouldn't be doing that. That's bad. But most of the time, there can be situations where no one ends up happy and no one is trying to make anyone else unhappy. And it's because either the questioner has decided, what they're trying to get out is an answer to their question, and they're trying to do it with the minimum of effort on their part because they've got better things to do, okay? If their goal in life is not to produce a great question, then they won't do so. If they were to text someone, what time shall we meet for dinner tonight? They're not going to turn that into a beautiful piece of prose, because all they want to do is, right, when are we going to meet? On the other hand, the person who's a regular on Stack Overflow is thinking, well, I'm trying to make Stack Overflow a repository of great questions and answers. So they have different criteria, different goals, and I think if we understood each other's goals much better, then we can be in a much better position to speak to each other instead of past each other. So I suspect that would make us better software engineers and, frankly, better people.
So communication skills.
Communication skills and empathy. And empathy can be really hard when you can't see the person who is going to consume this. You're having to imagine, right, okay, I'm writing an answer, or I'm writing a question for these hypothetical people that might help me. How can I help them to help me? Or I'm writing an answer on Stack Overflow, and I'm pretty sure I've got the right technical idea, but how can I put that across in a way that isn't just correct, but is useful? Because those are two quite different things sometimes. There's I can't even remember what it is, but the definition of monad. Why do people think that monads are so hard? They're just an endomorphic function of the something space, or whatever nonsense it is, that is a completely pointless but utterly correct thing to say. If we can focus on being useful, then I think life will be better.
Okay. This whole thing is a very nice closure for me, because I remember, Dino, you were in Warsaw about 8 or 9 years ago. You were giving a talk at local meetup, and back then I attended this meetup, and I was a code monkey living in a basement. I was scared of people and so on. I would never dream that I would ever be here where I am now with you. And the thing that caused all of this in my life was that I started a blog. So I would say that the best thing that each developer can do if they want to change anything in their life is to start a blog, and it goes from there like...
Or write in some form or other. So that's the other, you mentioned communication skills. Software engineering programming is all about communication, but it's about communication in the same way as poetry is. You're trying to get, in poetry, you've got the rhythm, the meter, the scansion, the overall impression of the poem, as well as the sort of straight meaning. And you've got those things in tension. In programming, we are writing for the computer, and we're also writing for whoever's going to read the code next, whether that's ourselves or our colleagues, or someone on the web, if it's open source, who you may never see, may never know. So practicing writing of any form, and blog posts are a great way to do things, I think is immensely helpful.
I'd like to add one more thought on this. Just starting from the words, the concepts of John. So when you do something, try to be in the shoes of the person that is going to use your work. I will rephrase this by saying, try to improve the experience that others will go through when using your code, which is just another way to rephrasing the same concept. But I put in here the word experience. And in software, whatever we do, whether it's web or not, experience these days in particular is most commonly associated with the word user. So it's user experience. Of course, user experience is not simply colors, not simply the graphical aspect of things, but is about the experience that people will go through when practicing with the software, the front end that we create. It seems like a very trivial kind of concept, but it has fundamental consequences, because in the way in which we think, devise, and then build software, we put user experience first, whether it's an API or a front-end piece of code. That will make us better developers, because we are automatically able to produce something that will give a better experience to our users. At the same time, it can even take us putting the final goal we want to reach, so give customers, users a better experience in the way in which we reorganize our own schedule of work. And in software terms, in some cases, even the architecture, the tools, the framework, to be ready to go straight to the point. Because as developers, too often we tend to over-engineering things, trying to, to feel like God that has given the power to create things. And as developers, we too often are, after over 20 years of experience, I think I can say that too often developers fall victim of the God anti-pattern.
Okay, thank you. Another thing I would like to mention here is that Scott Hanselman several weeks ago wrote a blog post about the importance of relax and resting. And we as developers tend to work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week to become better, or because we just like to do what we do. And with your experience, what is the importance of giving yourself a break once in a while?
First, you have to define work and rest. So
that's the problem.
Right. So I've recently started working from home sort of quite a lot, often 4 days of the week, from my shed, as you saw this morning. And when I'm working from home, I actually end up doing more hours in the day than if I commute, partly because my commute is an hour and a half to 2 hours each direction. So, when you've got, say, 3.5 hours of extra working time, that's pretty significant. And one of the beauties of working from home is that sometimes that's not all extra work time. That means I can go to the shops in the middle of the day when otherwise I'd have to wait till the weekend or whatever it is. But I find that I'm relaxed while I'm working more. But at the same time, there are other things that I can do that are software engineering. So my Node-a-Time API, great date and time API for .NET. You should all be using it, of course. Does that count as work? It's sometimes stressful, trying to work out a bug in time zones yet again. There's all kinds of potential stresses, but equally, it is overall a very satisfying and enjoyable experience. But then work is also an enjoyable and satisfying experience. And I think it is important to draw a line between the two and know that when I'm doing work for Google, then I've kind of got to get it done. If I'm feeling exhausted and I'm not going to be productive for the rest of the day and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I can say, right, okay, I'm just going to call it a day. If I haven't got meetings or whatever, I'll call it a day and then put in the hours another time. And Google's flexible enough. If I get the work done, that's fine. But it is easy to feel sometimes that the community owns you when it comes to open source or even Stack Overflow, whatever it is. I've had to start getting used to saying no to presenting at conferences because I don't have all the time. I would love to spend, I wouldn't love to spend my life traveling all the time because I wouldn't see my family. And that's the main problem with it. But you do need downtime, and I think as well as downtime that is related to your day job, I think everyone could do with some downtime that's genuinely something completely different. And you don't have to go up to mountains or whatever. If it's slobbing in front of the TV, then that's fine. My wife and I tend to sit and watch TV for an hour every night. And it is largely just brain off time. We enjoy, these days there is fabulous TV on, much better than 20 years ago, by far. So it's not strictly brain switched off, but it's mentally recovering from the day. And I certainly find if I try, I see I've got a comment from Stack Overflow, I'll just reply to that. Oh, there's another question, I could just answer that. I don't get even though that's relaxing hobby type stuff, I don't get as disengaged and as good a night's sleep. So trying to disengage from software engineering entirely for some of the time, whilst at other times having fun in a non-work environment is all good.
Yeah, brains
About you.
off is the key word as I say things. In general, I think that our body tells us when it's the time to stop, to relax. So we fall asleep at the end of the day because our body says it's about time we get some physical rest. Disengaging, just to use John's words from software engineering, is the same as falling asleep. Personally, I think that it's my body to tell me when it's time to stop, and it could be within the day, could be within the week, could be even within the year. Recently, in June, mid-June, I got back from a business trip. I had no other business trip starting shortly, and all of a sudden, the Monday morning, I figured out I was completely unable to do any software-related work. And that condition lasted for over 2 weeks. In those 2 weeks, I was lucky enough that I had no incoming deadlines at that time. So I did only the bare minimum I had to do. And for the most part, I just did gardening or played tennis or just I took care of myself for over 2 weeks. You can call this vacation. No, vacation is another thing. Vacation is something totally different. But I was not able to produce anything. And my body started reacting after a couple of weeks, but slowly. So it took me essentially a month to be back to the physical and mental condition for doing software-related work that I was before. It's a moment, you accumulate stress, mental stress, and you have to disengage. And when you disengage, whatever that makes you happy and relaxed works. Watching TV, reading, whatever. You may find that surprising, but it's totally true. I haven't read any technical book for over 7 years. It's 7 years. No, not even my books. No C#, no architecture, nothing. Just fiction and narrative books. Period.
So now I'm going to put a load of insults in C# in depth, knowing that Dino's never going to read it. It'll be fine. I would say that, Dino, when you say your body tells you because you start falling asleep, that's in the best case. And I'm thinking about earlier this week, actually. I was really quite stressed. I had to do prepare a presentation for another talk, another conference, and I was trying to prepare my keynote, and I was doing loads of work for Google and getting very stressed. And I took it out on my kids and my wife by being grumpy and shouting. And there were times when my kids were not looking what they were doing, and they deserved a bit of a telling off, but I overreacted. And I could sort of feel it at the time, and I want to say sorry to them now for that. And just to say this as a warning that, listen when your body is telling you that, and when other people are suffering because of it, do something about it. And I'm sorry that I didn't do something about it, on Monday night when I felt stressed and the next day after a good night's sleep, I actually felt considerably better. But I wish that I had stopped a little bit earlier and saved them from, feeling, oh no, Daddy's shouting.
Yeah, I call it debugging myself. When I'm sad or irritated or angry, I go to sleep. Even if it's the middle of the day, I go for 1 hour sleep, I wake up, everything is better. And the warning sign, the worst warning sign I ever got was nosebleed during coding. I was doing some coding marathon for 16 hours a day for 3 months, and after 3 months, so it wasn't very nice. But have you ever experienced burnout, that you don't want to work anymore? You described something like this. Would you call it a burnout?
Yeah, when I was working for a particular company. Yes, that was the only time. It was many years ago. I resisted there less than 6 months, and half of that time was spent trying to get out of the company. Yes, that was exactly the definition of burnout. So I was feeling physical pain getting out of home every day, drive to the place, to the office, doing the work. It was still software-related work. I mean, I was there doing, working on customers, on web projects, the usual kind of thing. But I really hated the philosophy of the company, the particular activity I was called to do. And for me, it was really, I mean, I could have done everything, even opening a pizzeria and running a restaurant, whatever, working at McDonald's, whatever, but being a software engineer there.
I don't think I've experienced full burnout. I've just described a very mini burnout. We all have bad days, right? And we all have days where we probably work a bit too long or whatever it is. And you don't sort of notice until afterwards that actually that last hour that you were miserable for, you actually didn't produce anything either. And if you just stopped an hour earlier, then everyone would have been happier. I've had a couple of periods where I've worked harder or in different... There was a time when I got into the office significantly before anyone else, which meant getting up even more in the dark than I do now. And I think my health suffered a little bit. And it was entirely self-imposed. And fortunately, it was only for a few weeks, and I was able to just stop after that and got significantly better. But other people had noticed, look, you're looking really tired, you need to sort out what's going on. But that's not nearly, certainly the stories I hear from the games industry around horrific deadlines and just stuff that I don't even want to imagine. I feel very, very privileged in so many ways, but in terms of just software engineering in general, I was having a discussion earlier on with maybe some of you, but out while we were having dinner, about there are very few professions that people work 9 to 5 doing something and then go home and do the same thing for fun for another few hours of the evening and then at the weekends. And not every software engineer does that, but probably a good proportion of the ones who also come to conferences do, and probably a higher proportion than do that sort of thing for other industries. So we do something that we clearly love. We are very well paid for it, and it is mostly physically non-taxing. But even so, I would really hate, I've been very lucky in the jobs I've had have always been with considerate employers who would not ask me to do 16-hour days, or may ask me to work 16 hours for one day and then say, right, and now I'm telling you, you've got to take tomorrow off. Whatever it is, I can be flexible, they can be flexible, it's all good. I just can't imagine being in the 2-month 16-hour day. No, that's just... Don't do it. If someone else tries to, if someone else tries to put you into that situation, for your own sake, get out of it. And if everyone in the industry takes that attitude, then they're not going to have anyone that they can put under that pressure anymore. Now that's coming from a position of privilege where I can get out of it. I realize not everyone has all the choices, but it's at least worth trying. Resist the temptation to overwork yourself.
You both are seen as productive people. Do you have any, morning routines or any productive methodologies that you use in your daily lives? What makes you do the things that you do, not less?
I have a shave. Seriously, it's one of the things I find most disconcerting about traveling. If I travel to the US, so if I end up 8 hours behind, then I'll end up going maybe 32 hours without shaving. And by that time, I feel I can't do anything. I feel awful. I suspect if I grew a beard and it was just the norm, it would be fine. But I'm used to being fairly smooth shaven. So I feel in the morning, literally, when I have got up and had a shave, I feel ready for the day. And then I go out to my shed and enjoy myself.
No, I think I have no special practice. I can think that makes my day better or worse, except the exact things I'm expected to do the particular day. And lately, I feel really happy and relaxed if I know that I have to spend the day coding. Yeah, That, I mean, I wake up in the morning and say, oh, I have a full day of coding ahead of me. Wow, that's great.
Okay, that's awesome. So you were talking about coding, and earlier you said that programmers are a little gods, something like that. What do you think about teaching kids to code? Do you have any opinions on that?
I do. I have an opinion, and I also have some concrete experience. In general, we are already, and even more in the future, well, if you allow me the joke, unless Donald Trump got elected, because in that case we don't know what can happen to the entire humanity and mankind. But except for that, I mean, we live, and we even more live in the future, in a world that is full of software. Nearly everything we do is, and will be even more based on software. So today, if we look at the next generation, our kids, or maybe, because my kids are, pretty much of age, but no, probably your kids, more than my kids. Thinking of a world in which only a small fraction of people can handle software scares me. So in this regard, I do encourage, schools, politics in countries to make code not something just for geeks, but for everybody, much the same way in which is recognized as important to be able to speak foreign languages or to even write and using basic mathematics. This said, it's still a matter of attitude. Today is essentially a matter of attitude. I had no trouble at all teaching programming to my son when he was 11 years old. He is 18 years old now, and he makes his own money writing mobile applications. So he made a sort of a career in that. So he could be hired by any company doing mobile development, no matter the age. It's fully experienced. And it started when he was 18. And there's a nice story about that, because he was quarreling with a sister. So to split them off, I said, hey, come, I'll teach you something that only real men can do. I'll teach you programming. Oh, yes. So I started, what could have arranged in a few minutes? JavaScript, HTML, an HTML page. So after an hour in which I tried to explain the foundation of loops and ifs and statement assignment and those kind of things, he looked at me and said, how do you call this language? It's JavaScript. And then, trust me, he said, something more serious than this? But it was not about the language. He meant something, more serious than the stupid demos that you're asking me to write. But anything more serious? And then I think, then JavaScript, okay, that's funny. My daughter instead has no interest at all. No way I can invite her to get fascinated by this world.
Well, not when you said that only real men can code, no. I seriously take issue with
that was the job between father and son. Come on, we're real men. So that happened a couple of years later when I tried to initialize actually, my daughter to programming. It didn't work. No, it's definitely important, absolutely.
So I have 3 kids. I have a 12-year-old. I'll tell you their names so that I can refer to them by name. It's easier. So I have a 12-year-old called Tom and 10-year-olds called Robin and William. And I started to teach Tom a little bit of Scratch when he was probably 6 or 7 or something. And back then, I used to go swimming with Robin and William on a Saturday morning. And they got to a certain stage and they graduated through one class, and the next class was at an inconvenient time. They weren't interested in learning how to swim any further. They were safe swimmers. That's all I ask of swimming, that they can go into the sea, they can go into a pool, they will be safe without adult supervision beyond, us watching from the beach. Great. So my wife and I are talking, about what we're going to do, and she said, right, well, I'm fine with them dropping swimming, but I would like them to spend some more time, ideally with you, doing something. I said, okay, let's see if we can start a little coding club at home on Saturday mornings. And I have another friend who has twins, Max and Zach, who are 11, I think. They're sort of between Tom and Robin and William. So we thought, right, we'll get them over as well, and we can have the 5 kids sitting around the dining room table, and they can all learn coding together. And we tried this for about 3 months, probably. And by and large, I would say it was a miserable failure. So I was trying to teach mostly Python, and I was trying to teach it in a fun way, as fun as I could think of, but teaching things properly and giving things the right names and stuff to start with, and they clearly weren't engaged. Tom was a little bit engaged and would start to do a few extra things. And last year at school, he won one of the prizes. So he's just started at secondary school, and so in each year at secondary school, there are form prizes for various things. And I was immensely proud that he won the computer science prize for his year. You know, he and another couple of kids. And that was nothing to do with, I hadn't tried to teach him Python for a good couple of years, but he had become sufficiently interested on his own. And Robin is really interested in Scratch for doing all kinds of things that I wouldn't have thought of in terms of programming. So we all sat down and watched Michelle Obama's speech recently, you know, the one that was sometime last week. And we all watched it together, and Robin said, I'm going to make a program about that in Scratch. It's like, I have no idea what you're thinking you'll do, but I can't wait to find out. And the key thing is that they're doing it because they want to, rather than because it's 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, we're going to do coding. So I think a large part of coding has to be self-driven. But I'm fully agreed that there is a definite place within schools, partly with professional teachers who know significantly better than I do how to engage kids in learning. You know, I'm a good teacher at certain aspects. If you're an intermediate C# developer who wants to learn more about a feature that you don't understand, I'm your friend. I'm going to be there. I can give you the right technical terminology. It'll all be fine. If you're a 14-year-old kid who doesn't really know what they want to do on a phone or whatever it is, then I'm not the best person to teach you. And hopefully, professional teachers really are. And I hope they get all the training that they need. So I do think it's great. In the UK now, teaching programming is mandatory. I'm not sure for how many years, but I think it's at least sort of 2 or 3 years. And that means that everyone can get a taste of it and find out whether or not it's something that they might enjoy and might take and do stuff outside school. Because I suspect all the real learning is going to happen outside school, but inside school, they can be basically forced to learn enough about what's going on for 2 reasons. One is, even if you never write a line of code in your life, I think it helps you to understand the way the world works if you have some basic understanding of how code works. You know, I'm not suggesting that everyone needs to know computer science yet. Understanding how a hash table works is probably not going to help anyone. Understanding that computing is about breaking down big problems into small problems, and that computers are really dumb, but they're really good at doing very, very small things really insanely quickly. Those bits of understanding, I think, can help people live a more productive life in general. The other aspect that I think people will do more of is the sort of if this then that type of programming, whether it's home automation, when that becomes out of a geek domain, and just, you know, well, everyone has the home computer. I think the term home computer might mean something very different in 10 years' time. It might mean the panel that's in your living room or in your hall that is how you program, you know, I want the lights to come on at 6 o'clock or when someone comes in the door or whatever. And nothing needs to be complicated. All the things that we're talking around, no one needs to know CQRS to do that. No one needs to know multi-threading. No, there are so many things that are within the software engineering purview that are completely irrelevant to the kind of programming that could actually help 80–90% of people. So that's one aspect where it's useful. The other is, sort of goes back to what you were saying, your daughter has no interest. And this again goes back to what we were discussing outside. I have no doubt that she has no interest. I surmise that part of that lack of interest may be because society has bombarded her with messages since she was born that this is a geek thing to do. Now, maybe if she viewed women as likely to go into software engineering as men, still she may have no interest. Okay, there are plenty of things where I can see women and men doing the same kind of things, and I have no interest. Okay, I'm delighted to see that women's football is coming on. I don't want to be a footballer. I never have wanted to be a footballer. Any representation you give me is not going to make me want to do more football. But I do think that we're stacking the odds against women at the moment. So if software engineering can be well taught in school so that everyone gets a chance to feel what it's like to create something in a way that's different from creating a story, it's a story that can create itself. It's a story that can be different every time. Do you have any idea how lucky we are to do what we do? We are creative in a way that no one else is. Other people are creative in ways that no one else is as well, in different fields. But there is something that I find magical about software engineering, and I'm so glad that I was given the opportunity when I was younger, and that I didn't have the messages saying, even if you have to do this, you should then put it down as quickly as you can. So I hope that it will improve diversity. I hope that it will improve the chances of the next awesome thing coming out of someone who would otherwise not have thought to type in anything. Sorry, rant over again.
Awesome. Hey, thank you. It's 9:30. We must not go past 9:30. This was the only directive that I got today. So thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you all.
Thank you.